Hey there, welcome and good morning, good afternoon, amazing Real Success Nation. This is Coach Bill Pipes coming at you, as always, alive, excited, and full of energy. Not full of green tea this morning. This morning is some chai tea, some good chai tea. So it's natural energy versus the synthetic engineered energy of the green tea. And I'm super pumped. You guys can see me smiling from ear to ear right now because I've been looking forward to the opportunity. I've been talking to our guest for a year about doing this, and finally we've had the ability to have it come together and to be able to actually get this rocking and rolling. And so, guys, I want to talk to you about something. Summit's coming up. Tom Ferry, your coach summit is actually coming up, and it's coming up in August. For those of you that haven't had the chance to register, obviously we'd love to see you there with all the other 6,000 amazing real estate agents, top agents from around the nation. This year's theme is fearless. Fearless. And, in looking at, the 20 interviews that we've done, this is our 20th interview that we have now done. And I want to thank you guys for just super grateful for you being here through all those interviews and learning and continuing to come back and us growing together. And when I look at all the interviews I've done, every single person that we've had the chance to interview has had this component of being fearless in one way, shape, form, or another, right? Fearless of, like getting on the phone and making calls. Fearless in terms of overcoming background and history. Fearless in terms of working higher end markets. And such a big component of being fearless is this right here, is what's going on between your ears in that bowling ball that we call our head, 3 feet above our booty. And, I think about just this whole aspect of controlling your mind. And for most of us, those of you that have been in a seminar that I've led or that Tom has led, you hear us say all the time that your head is a very scary place to be. And for most of us, that's the case. And when we look at controlling our mind as a component of being fearless, truly it either holds us back. If our mind, if we don't control it, will hold us back. Our mind, if we do control it, gives us the ability. It's such a valuable tool, such a powerful tool. Gives us the ability to be able to crush any of the fears or the limiting beliefs that we have. And so today I wanted to take the time to be able to really dig into that, to get into how do you and what are the strategies to change behaviors and to overcome those beliefs, and ultimately what the end result could be for you. And it's with that, by the way, one of my mentors, I call him one of my mentors, even though I never really got the chance to spend a lot of time with him, Jim Rohn. One of my favorite quotes by Jim Rohn, and those of you that don't know Jim Rohn, he trained another small little speaker named Tony Robbins, and Jim Rohn was sort of like the grandfather of personal growth and development, much like Earl Nightingale. And Rohn has a quote. He says, "If you spend time working on yourself, you need to spend more time working on yourself than your job. If you work very hard on your job, you're going to earn a living. You work very hard on yourself and you're going to earn a fortune. And not just a fortune in terms of money, but a fortune in terms of relationships, fortune in terms of freedom," right? And this guest that I get to introduce to you has truly done that. And it is with my pleasure that I get to introduce you and share with you my incredibly good friend, Miss Cairn Nguyen from Phoenix. Welcome to Real Success, Cairn.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. You're such a great person to introduce, and you just bring so much energy, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity today. So thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm stoked right now. I can't wait for this. I got my notebook ready, babe. So I'm looking forward to taking notes. So why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little bit in terms of who you are, right? Where do you sell homes? What's been your progress in terms of real estate? Because, this year, you guys are trending to sell 400, 500 homes. I'm fingers crossed, intention strong for 500, but it's been an interesting path to get you there because you started in traditional, took a side note, and then came back to traditional. So can you tell us a little bit about that, the progress and how long you've been in the business?
Yeah, so I got started in 2003. And when I got started, I was newly married. I had a 6-year-old and a newborn, and started in equity sales, like you said. The market was great in '03. And quickly I realized that there's just not a lot of direction, right? The industry is pretty unorganized, unstructured. So within 3 months, I actually hired a coach. One of the best decisions I ever made, getting coaching. And that really gave me some direction. I had a coach actually that was a mother and doing big business. So she understood the pains and the difficulties I was going through, and just did equity sales. I did very prospecting based and closed just short of 40 in the first 12 months. And
Wow.
then pretty consistently 40 after that until about 2000, would have been the beginning of 2008. The market here in Metro Phoenix had really took a tumble. So at that point, I started getting approached. I actually got approached because of my coaching. Someone that was also a former coaching client contacted me and asked, would you do BPO? And I said, oh, I don't know about that. I've heard about these people asking for BPOs and not getting paid, but I'll do a couple. And so I did that, and I actually got several listings. And from there, it really took off. And I used what I did before, which was prospecting, and I prospected for bank business. And I really built, I guess what you would call an REO empire. The height of my REO, I sold just short of 900 houses. Those were all listings. And I had opened a brokerage during that time. And so I was referring all the buyer leads out to the agents in the brokerage. And all along knew, because I was still in coaching, that the REO market was not going to last forever. So what would that look like? And so one of the best pieces of advice I got from my coach during that time was adopt the people on the other side of the transaction. Adopt all those buyers. So we did that. We adopted everybody into our database and really prepared for, hey, the market's going to shift. The market's going to shift. We don't know when, but REO will dry up and we'll need to make a shift. And during that journey, when I opened a brokerage, I also started a real estate team. So I mentioned I sold 900 listings in a year. That was just myself. And two, I think by that time we had added, a third and a fourth admin, because it was a beast of a business, but I didn't have sales agents. So going through that journey with the real estate brokerage, I learned I wanted to have a real estate team, because I wanted to have people with a higher level of accountability and the different economics of that as well. And so I started the real estate team within the brokerage, and then really was challenged between running the brokerage and running the real estate team. And my efforts and my love really started just taking me more towards the real estate team than it was the brokerage. And so at the end of 2014, we actually closed the brokerage and made a shift over to a different, larger company. And with that, we've had full focus, kind of going back to that one thing concept, not being the jack of all trades, but really focused on one thing. We've grown the team concept really from zero in equity sales to where we're at today, which last year we closed just over 200, about 213 units. This year, our goal is 500. We're trending, for somewhere between probably at the 400 mark right now.
Good. Awesome. So why was it, I know you, and I'm very interested to hear this answer. What was it about the traditional sales, the equity sales model, the building of a traditional team that you gravitated more towards? Why did you like that more than the bank business?
Because what I realized when I opened the brokerage, I went in thinking, or really seeing the different models that existed. And on one end of the spectrum, we had in Arizona, it's very popular. I know it's going that way across the country too. These 100% models, where it's just, transaction fee, but they provide limited to zero value. Or you have a more expensive company and, they provide, great value, but some agents don't want to pay that cost. So I thought, I'll be in the middle of all of those and offer this high level of coaching and support and training, and it'll be beautiful. It'll be a beautiful thing. I'll have mass agents that will want to do that. And when I got into it, I realized, well, gosh, that's not the case. Agents, the agents I was coming in contact weren't really tying or jumping in, I should say, to all the benefits and resources that we were offering. And so for all the time and cost we were expending, the economics didn't make sense. And as I had a real estate team, it allowed me to really have a hyper focus on a handful of people, get the result, and then that gave me basically the emotional reward, not just the financial reward, but probably even more important was the emotional reward, because I could see them getting the results and I was having an impact and we were making progress. And so from there, for me, it was really an easy choice to focus all my money and all my resources and emotional effort to the team.
Yeah, knowing you, it's very clear that if there's not that emotional feedback, if there's not that feeling of making a difference, you really don't engage in it. That's what I noticed the most is your true caring and compassion for every single person that's on your team. Speaking of your team, how large is it? Do you have on an admin side, and then how many people do you have on as sales agents on the team?
Yeah, so we have 4 admin, and then we also have 3 additional VAs, so total of 7. And then we have 15 sales agents, and I'm working pretty furiously to get to 20 by the end of the month.
Excellent. Yeah, you've been, guys, everyone who's listening, you talk about a leader that leads by example. Corinne has been on the phone prospecting every single day, not for listings because her team does that, but for leverage, for new people to be able to bring to the team. And it's exciting to see that occur because, a lot of times we think of these great leaders on Ivory Towers that, they just sort of are the conductor in the orchestra, but she's still down in the pits. And not, I guess that didn't sound too great. She's still down in the
that's what it is sometimes.
And your team hasn't always been this big. I mean, you've added how many people in the last 30 days?
We've added 7 in the last 30 days.
So a large portion of the production that's been done this year was done by 7 people, right?
Yeah, Ironman team.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, my husband and myself aren't in production, so I guess to the number I said when I said we had 15, there's him and myself that we add to that too.
Yeah. So by the way, we got to give a big shout out to Son as well too, who is just a stud, who is Corinne's husband, and really works side by side with her in terms of the coaching and the training of the team. So it wouldn't be right not to give you a big shout out, Son. So you rock, brother.
Yes, I do. I will second that motion for sure.
Right on. So we're talking about mindset today. Obviously, Summit this year is about being fearless. And, you are arguably one of the most successful agents in the entire nation. Okay. And in looking at that, I mean, it must have been an easy path to success. I mean, you must have grown up in, good background, good environment. I mean, because you've got one of the best mindsets that I've ever seen, best personal psychologies that I've ever seen. And so, tell us a little bit about like where you came from. How did you mentally make this journey? And, how did your parents support you, and how did this whole process unfold?
Everyone's an overnight success, right? That's what we all hear. So actually, I am going to start back in my childhood because I've learned a lot, even more so than I knew at the time. Obviously, as a kid, you don't know what you don't know until you get older and find out more about your roots. But I've actually recently learned that my parents met in a drug rehabilitation center. And I guess they fell in love, or the relationship started from there. They left the treatment center and pretty much went on the run. I don't want to say Bonnie and Clyde because they were committing crimes while they were out, but they left that treatment center, and here I come. And so I get born into, not the best of situations. And my parents really didn't have anything. They hadn't really been, for the most part, very responsible with their lives to that point. And, when I look at that part of my childhood, people would say, oh my gosh, specifically they were heroin addicts. That was their vice. And they've struggled with that addiction for the last 30 or 40 years. But they did a pretty decent job giving me the best life that they could with the resources that they had at the time. So, my grandmother had bought them a house, and I lived on an acre of land. So my memories of childhood is I got to play on this acre of land and, run the land and, just appreciate everything that I had every day, all day long. But on the surface level of what was happening, we were pretty poor. So my mom grew the vegetables, we used the stove for heat. She made my clothes. And so it was a rocky life, I guess to say from that point. But when I hit 8 years old, when I started 3rd grade, everything changed because my dad actually went from heroin to trying cocaine. And I woke up one night and he was abusing my mother. And so from that point on, we moved around quite a bit. I went to 9 different schools from the time I was in kindergarten until I hit high school. When I got to high school, that was the first time I really had major stability. And God bless my grandmother, my dad's mom, the one that had purchased the house for them, because she was really my support system. Obviously, I didn't know everything that was going on at the time, but she just surrounded me with support and smothered me in love. And she was an elementary school teacher, so she just really took me under her wing and did the best that she could under the circumstances. And so when I fast forward and I get to high school, as soon as I can be independent, I'm just chomping at the bit to be independent. So as soon as I can get a job, I got a job, I got a car, I got a secured credit card. I did everything to build myself up, planning for my eventual independence. And when I got that job, it actually was a telemarketing job, brand new portrait studio, didn't have any business. And so if anyone's had that call before, it's, hey, I'm calling because Bill, came in with his family and he's put you down. He wants to get you a free 8x10. So when can you come in? And the truth of it is there was no clientele. So there was no bill. And I was just calling out of the phone book, literally just saying, and they said, well, I don't even know a Bill. Well, that's okay. He knows you. You're going to get a free 8x10 out of it. And so that was my first official sales role. And it served me really well so far, in real estate. But to just keep going on that, I ended up getting pregnant in high school. And so I had the baby 2 weeks before I was set to start college. I actually had received a letter to go to the U of A, the University of Arizona here. And that plan changed. And so instead I just went to a local community college and I did start school. So I had my daughter, Jasmine. So I was just barely 18, had her, started college. And then when she was 3 months old, I actually got a different job at another portrait studio because that portrait studio had gone out of business, not because of my lack of effort to get people in the door, but they had some other financial hardships and a photographer that walked out on them. And it was good timing for me because that's when I was having a baby. So I went back to work when she was 3 months old, going to school and living with my mom at the time. And my mom, God bless her, she's a very independent woman. So while we were moving around during that time from third grade until high school, what I learned from her is that she was very versatile. She was very determined. She was going to do whatever it took to support me. There was many times that we could have been homeless. We were sleeping on people's couches. We would stay in a motel. And actually to pivot a little bit, because it's an important part of the story, one of the people that we lived with was a friend of a friend. So my mom didn't really know her. And that lady actually abused her son. And so I'd go to bed and wake up every morning listening to him muffle his cries because his mom was abusing him. And so my mom tried to get us out of that situation as quickly as possible. But that's what it looked like for that road. And so she did a great job with me. She was a very independent, strong woman, but I'm also a very independent, strong woman. So as I was coming into my own, it was very difficult to have both of us in a house and trying to basically two chiefs and one Indian, Jasmine being the Indian and, two people trying to parent and be the boss. And so when I was 18, I went out and I started having conversations that I was going to buy a house. And fortunate or unfortunate, my environment told me, no, you can't do that. My parents had never owned a house. So they said, that's silly. What are you talking about? You're 18, 19 years old. You cannot go out and buy a house. You have no idea the level of responsibility it is. My Jasmine's dad, my boyfriend at the time, same thing. He's like, you're stupid. You can't get a house, really putting me down. And for me, that was just a bigger driver. Oh, you're going to tell me I can't? Okay, great. Let me go show all of you that I absolutely can and I will. And so I went out, I, answered a newspaper ad, or I called on a newspaper ad, and it was for a new build. Not in the best part of Phoenix, but I hadn't grown up my whole life in the best part of Phoenix. So that was no, anything that was going to push me down. So I called that ad, and at 19 years old, I closed on my first house, which was a new build. And by 24, I had owned my first investment house and had found my husband today, Son, and was on my way, to a completely different path in life.
So amazing, because there's two speaking of paths, right? I mean, you could have two people growing up in this same environment. One turns out like you and says, of course I am the woman that I am, because my parents were this, my parents went through this. We were on couches all over the place. I made a decision in my mind. I was never going to go through that, and I was going to prove everyone wrong. And that's one path. But then there's the other path, same environment, that someone could have taken a left turn and said, well, of course, I'm addicted to heroin, cocaine. My parents were, they went through that. I didn't have any type of stability. And they could use it as an excuse for their normalcy or their lack of accomplishment in life. Whereas for you, it became the driving force. What do you think you learned through that entire process that you could share with all of us that really had you on this path over here where you succeed versus this path over here where you become a statistic?
And I analyze that frequently. And so I'm very blessed that obviously I took the direction that I did. The only catalyst or difference that I can think of is my grandmother. Her name was Arizona Sunshine. People called her Sunny. And so I just really think back to her and how big of a role she played in my life at that time. And so I'm sure she was removing me just at the right time, you know, to take me to go get ice cream or just to take me to do different things and really to be the support and the cheerleader for me my entire life. You know, I have not really had that from my parents. I've had it from my dad here as he's gotten older. I've definitely never had that from my mom. I have a very strained relationship with my mom. So I just go back to my grandmother being that catalyst for me.
What did you learn from her? What did you learn from your grandmother? What were the key things that you can look back and go, wow, these are the ahas or the axioms I learned from my grandmother that really helped shape me?
She taught me, you know, things aren't going to be easy, but it's really, you know, how do you make of a situation? You know, life's going to be tough, but it's how you react in those tough moments. And then she was also really feisty with me if I ever said I can't. So, you know, I was not, that was a very dirty word for her, for me to say the word I can't. So it was always about, you know, figuring out how you can do something. And so I'm sure that programming at a very early age, you know, is really attributed to where I am today.
I love that. The worst 4-letter word in the dictionary, can't.
So dirty. Yeah.
It's so dirty. I love it. Hashtag dirty word can't.
That's it.
Beautiful. Wow. Awesome.
That's it.
I didn't know all the components of that. I mean, I knew that it was a little bit tough growing up for you, but I had no idea, you know, that. And amazing. You would never tell. So, you know, you have a bulletproof mindset. I mean, I really look at you as someone, I see you on Facebook every single day. You're doing your gratitudes. I mean, what are some of the key components to developing a mindset like what you have or what you've seen with some of the other great top producers that are out in the industry and in the world? What do they do? What do you guys do to make sure that you're mentally as strong as possible?
So one of the things I learned early on too is that, like I mentioned, my grandmother told me, hey, life's going to be tough. There's going to be situations, but you're just going to have to navigate through those. And so I also learned you have to have, you know, the 5-second funeral. So when things happen, you know, you can't boo-hoo in the moment. You just figure out what you like, what you're thankful for, and move on.
So tell me more about the 5-second funeral. What is that? I mean, I've never heard that before.
So basically, you know, you can cry in the moment, but you have to move on pretty quickly, right? You can't just swirl in your own crap. So, you know, you can complain. Human nature, right? There's going to be things that happen, and some things are bigger and more tough than others. So in that moment, you know, whatever it is that you need to do, you can cry about it, you can get upset, you can rant, you can write, I might even complain to my spouse, but in 5 seconds, like I need to be done with whatever that crap is and be moving on to what's next and focusing on what I like and what's working well.
That's brilliant because it's interesting. I'm not sure if you know this, at 7 seconds, like when you put your focus on something for 7 seconds and you activate that emotion, it starts to release chemicals into the brain at the 7-second mark where you're releasing cortisol and flooding that stress hormone through the body. This is great. I love this. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to steal it, but I'll give you full credit. I'll give Sunny full credit for that. That's amazing. So do you have a process? Well, let me take a step back. Feel having the right mindset is for success in this business and in sales?
It's critical. I mean, I think that's the make or break. That's where people not even just survive, but they thrive in the business. Survival obviously is a big piece. We all hear the statistics. I was just watching Tom's video. I think it came out just yesterday or, you know, within the last couple of days for sure, where he talks about, I think the exact number was 87% of the people that get in the business are out in the first 2 years, if I'm quoting him correctly, but you might know that. So that's a pretty sickening statistic for our industry. And I think it's because people don't have the right mindset. They think it's going to be a lot easier than it is. And you're going to have to, I mean, really 10x, whatever you think the level of effort you're going to have to put towards something, you're going to have to 10x that. And so even as you navigate that though, even if you know, really give a lot of effort and you get further in, there's still going to be escrows that fall out. You're still going to have a difficult seller. You can have a few escrows fall out at one time. The market could shift on you. All these different variables happen in the real estate industry. And so if you're not sharpening your mind and working on that, just to your point, I mean, I love Jim Rohn. He's one of my favorite mentors. I didn't have the privilege of getting to know him, you know, here in the living, but everything that he says is so true. You have to go to work on yourself. Forget working on your job, work on yourself first, because that's the best investment that you can make.
Beautiful. So looking at the behaviors of ultra successful individuals, you know them, you're one of them, you're around them all the time, minus the, the tactical, you've got to prospect every single day. You got to follow up with your leads. You've got to, we're talking like this first, because it's possible, Corinne, to do this on the phone and prospect. And if this right here is off, you won't get results off this, right? Or have
that's
all
100%.
the leads that you want.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate.
So the question I have for you is this: what are the mental behaviors or the behaviors you see or disciplines that you see of the that you use to keep yourself every single day in that right mindset?
So it really goes back to a formula. The Miracle Morning actually has that formula really all lined up for us. And one of the most important aspects is meditation. So I start off doing meditation. I started that a couple of years ago, but I thought, gosh, this is kind of airy-fairy. He's of no relation to Tom. But just, I thought, gosh, I can't get my mind around this meditation piece. It just sounds so difficult, and I gave up on it. But I've since brought that back in the last 18 months, and that's been highly important to what I'm doing because it's really helped me focus during the day. It's just a great way to start off my day and relieve all the stress, because this is a very stressful business, especially when you're responsible and leading other people, even more so. So that's a critical component for me. Reading has been a huge one. Embarrassingly enough, I would be the person that would say, I don't read. I didn't many of the things. I got really good grades in high school, but I didn't read. I would watch the movie, I'd read the summary, and I wasn't a big reader. And so I don't remember, I couldn't tell you the specific seminar I went to that changed my mindset on this. However, in the last 5 years, my mindset has been turned upside down with regard to reading, because that's really the difference between where I am and where someone else that's not as successful is what they're putting in their mind. Going back to going to work on yourself, like that learning piece to me is so exciting. It's never ending. There's an endless amount of books and information I can put on my mind. I'm just limited by the hours in the day, right, of how much I can put in there. So that's a huge, huge aspect of what I'm doing. And then I would also say another critical component is gratitude. One of the things I didn't mention, my relationship with my mom actually was really great until I had the baby, till I got pregnant. And I didn't know then why. I know now that my mom actually had a child at 21 and put that child up for adoption. And so that's why our relationship pretty much became strained at that point on. And we have a history in our family of a lot of depression, actually on both sides of the family. There's some deep, deep depression, and we also have a couple of suicides in there because of the depression. And so
hold on one second, Corinne.
Yep.
I want you to go back to gratitude, because for some reason it cut out and
okay.
I couldn't hear you. So just start number. I go gratitude, and we'll splice it in. Okay.
Okay. So gratitude's another critical component for me, because we have a long history of mental illness in our family. And so if I could just kind of back up a minute, I mentioned that I have a strained relationship with my mom. I had a really good relationship with my mom actually until I became pregnant. And I didn't know then or really understand why, but I understand now because I've learned that my mom actually had a baby at 21 and put that baby up for adoption. And so to see me going through that at even a younger age than she did, and then keep the child and really persevere. If you think about that, I persevered through that entire, I got a house and I did all these things and I made it work. Something happened to my relationship with my mom and to her psychologically, that instead of being the typical mother cheering for your child going, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you, it was quite the opposite. And anything I did in achievement actually strained the relationship even further. And so we have a long history of depression and just mental illness. Even, my mom's mom took her own life. And within 18 months, her brother took his own life. That happened probably close to 18 years ago. And so with this deep history of depression, that's has been a fear of mine going, oh my gosh, I have this on both sides of the family. I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want to be a victim of circumstance. I haven't been that so far. So what am I going to do to make sure I have control of that? And that's where I really started getting fanatical about the mindset piece. And through that, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say just one word, brilliant. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people would default to their circumstances, and you just haven't. Continue, please.
Yeah,
sorry.
Thank you. So no, so instead of being in fear of, oh my gosh, this is just going to be my destiny because it's happened generation after generation, I'm reading to say, okay, what do I need to do to make sure that my mind stays as strong as possible, and that if life hands me an even tougher circumstance in the future, that I don't go the wrong direction, and that my mind is strong enough to sustain it. And so that's where I've had this, love affair, like I said, with having the right mindset. I would say about, 3 years ago now, I started having anxiety. I started battling anxiety. An example of that would be, I would be afraid for my kids to go anywhere. I didn't want my kids to be away from me because I was afraid something was going to happen to my kids. I thought one of my sons had an issue with his lymph node, and I was sure he had lymphoma. Anytime I had any type of ailment or sickness, I thought I had cancer. I was dying. To travel, we travel quite a bit. To get on a plane, it was a lot of effort. I did never not travel because of that. However, the anxiety was going really high. And so with that, I started reading about gratitude and having a better understanding of what that does for you psychologically. And when you're in gratitude, it's impossible. It's physically and mentally, psychologically impossible to be in fear or anger when you're wholly and solely in gratitude. And so I just started a gratitude journal. And so 2 years ago on Facebook, I said, hey, my New Year's resolution is I'm going to make a gratitude post every single day. And it actually became a little bit of a challenge for me of, if there's something that I didn't like, I'd actually figure out how I would turn it into something that I was grateful for. So the other day I made a post. It's 120 degrees here in Phoenix, and I have a black truck with black leather seats, and I burned myself when I got in the car, and so I was cranky, 5-second funeral. And I said, you know what, Corinne, get a grip. You actually have a car, a very reliable car. You have no doubt the car is going to get you all the way home. You actually have cooled seats. So it's going to take 10 minutes, but your butt will be cool in 10 minutes. And you have AC, which many people don't have. And so it's actually fun because it's just turned into this natural. It just happens. If there's something that happens that I don't like, immediately my brain, I don't even have to work to it anymore. My brain just shifts to say, oh no, here's what you do like. Here's what's beautiful about that. And so that's the strongest part of the mindset that I've built.
You've had to that's a reprogramming, right? It's not
absolutely
natural. It's really easy to be grateful for the things that are going well, right? That's like the easy part. But where the real power is, and I love that you're hitting this, the real power of gratitude is looking at the things that could be conceived as, binarily wrong, not good, etc., and going, wait a second, what's the flip side of this? How is this good? How can I appreciate this? How can I be grateful? That right there, hey guys, that right there is if you're looking for one thing from this interview, that's it. I know you've already gotten like 5 different things here already, but take that, run with it. So, okay. So I got meditation, reading, which I loved your point on reading. Okay. I heard, Corinne, you'll appreciate this. I heard a really cool quote. It said, people that actually struggle financially have big TVs. People that are wealthy have big libraries.
I think that's also a Jim Rohn one, because I've heard that too. I think that's Jim Rohn also.
Yeah, I love that. I've been telling my kids that. They're
Me
like,
too.
But Dad, we want a big TV. I'm like, wait a second. So, okay, so we got meditation, we got reading, we got gratitude. What else? What else?
Visualization is also really important to me. And I didn't realize that, but I've done that my whole life. I can visualize myself, when I was smaller, doing something really big, having an impact on people, not really understanding how or when or why, what that would look like. But I'm always visualizing what the next is. And so I'm getting excited and staying focused, and my brain will just drive me there. So we know scientifically, if you read about that, your brain is wired to take you there. So if you picture something and you picture that consistently, and you're ingraining that in your neural pathways, you will actually get there. It's not an accident. That's why vision boards work and all those things. So I'm very big on the visualization, and journaling is also really important, because I'll go back to my journals and I'll read them. It's not just about writing, and then it's also reading. And I'll do a personal, but I also do business points. And I get pretty cranky when I read some of the business journals and I say, gosh, you were complaining about that last year. Or gosh, even 2 years ago, you were having the same challenge then. What is wrong with you? It's time to take action. Like, get out of that. Don't ever write that down again. The next entry is going to be, I'm not doing this anymore. I've gotten the result. I've made the progress. I'm done over it. So I don't think if I had that reflection in the journaling, that I would get that result eventually at the point that I get. So that's also a big one for me.
Do you know what I look forward to, Corinne? This is you're gonna laugh at this. I look forward to next year, as we're working together, to you looking at your journal and thinking, oh my gosh, time management, that used to be something. right?
Yes.
So
Yes, that is my number one struggle. Like, totally put it out there. Time management. I can do 100 things in 20 minutes. I can get anywhere in 20 minutes. I can do everything in 20 minutes. So yes, time management is my. You are right, and I'll take you up on that challenge for sure.
I love it, baby. I love it. So what limiting beliefs have you had in the past that were holding you back, and how did you overcome them?
The biggest limiting beliefs that I've had have been from scarcity. And so that scarcity versus abundance conversation, and not realizing that that's actually to somebody's detriment. I thought when I got into real estate, oh, I'll go to this 100% company. And this isn't a knock or a slam to a 100% company. It's just to make the point that because I wasn't brought up with a lot of money or a lot of things, I thought, well, gosh, it's really important to manage it correctly now. And I'm not going to give it away to the company or to anything else. And I'm going to play small, really is kind of the point there. And so as I've realized, and that I've made that same mistake actually in the real estate team, coming from being an individual agent and starting a team, I was still thinking like an individual agent. So one of the biggest mistakes I made in the real estate team journey was giving the wrong compensation. I wasn't seeing all the value I was bringing to the relationship. And so I actually offered the wrong splits at the time. Again, thinking from scarcity instead of abundance. And so what I know today is I'd much, much rather have a smaller percentage of something much greater than a bigger percentage of something smaller. As long as the net gain is bigger, right, that's the win. And we have broken agent math in this industry, because we'll just say, well, 100% of two, like, that's great, I'm winning, it's 100% of two, I keep it all to myself, and it's thinking in scarcity. Another example of that scarcity conversation too would be me not sharing the things that I'm doing. And so one of the things I've learned at the company that I'm at today is that it's a company built on sharing. So we share, we mastermind with the top agents in the company. Everyone's very giving. They'll give you the exact playbook of everything that they're doing, and I will do the same. And we all win much bigger than that. There's more than enough business to go around for all of us. So it's really shifting that limiting belief for me from going from scarcity to abundance, or playing to not to lose versus playing to win.
How did you do that? How did you, because that's a big limiting belief, and that's a huge one that's actually inside the industry right now, not just for agents, but also for sellers. Sellers come from scarcity when they're looking at, I want you to do your job at a reduced fee, or another agent could, told me that they could get more. So it isn't just us that go through it. It's, it's our clients as well too. How did you overcome that? What was the aha moment, or what was the process that you utilized to be able to actually break through that?
Yeah, there wasn't one aha moment for me per se. It was, first of all, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I had never been exposed to that type of thinking or conversation. And after I was exposed to it, I just needed to have it hit me again and again and again. And I'd be lying if I sat here and said, I'm in abundance 100% of the time. There's still times that I'll look at Son and I'll say, we're in scarcity right now. You realize that, right? Like, we have, not today, because our real estate team looks better than it ever has. But there's been a point in time where we have had people on the team, and maybe we didn't have very many people, and we didn't have the right people on the bus, and we weren't parting ways with them. And so, I turned to Son and I'd say, we're in scarcity right now, right? Like, we're afraid to let these people go because of whatever the reason is, the perception, and, fill in the blank for all the reasons. So yeah, human nature, it's still a journey for me, and I'm still working on it, but I've made tremendous progress, over the last several years, and I trust that it's going to be a continued journey, and I get closer and closer every day.
Beautiful. So, quick question for you, because you're sort of leaning on it right now. This whole idea of breakdown. We've heard this before. The bigger the breakdown, the greater the breakthrough. There's all these trite, conversations. They're true, but they've been so normalized from personal growth and development books and everything else. Do you believe that breakdown is a key component to success, and that you have to go through breakdown to be able to get a breakthrough?
Oh man, do I believe in that? Because when you have the bigger the breakdown, the bigger the breakthrough, right? Yeah. As long as your mindset's right and you persevere through that, you got to be resilient and keep going to make it, or you let the breakdown break you. So that's not an option. But I would say, yeah, I absolutely have breakdowns. And the two differences today between a breakdown would be, number one, that 5-second funeral that I talked about. I can't focus on what's happening in the breakdown in the moment, because I have got to keep the first and foremost for me every single time is making sure that my mindset is as good as it can be, as strong as it should be. And so I'm going to look at it for 5 seconds and I'm going to go, man, this is really hitting me hard. This is a pretty bad breakdown. What are all the things that are going right? Gosh, we have this going right. We have that. I'm going to list off all those things. We're going to have a conversation with Son, same thing, right? So that we can verbally talk about that and it's out there. And then I'm just going to take it piece by piece. All right, well, here's the breakdown. How can I take this chunk and make a fix? The other piece is probably the biggest mistake I've ever made, period. And that is not really giving the full credit to having the right environment or support. And so being very independent myself, coming into real estate thinking I was smart enough to get a coach. However, for the most part, I thought, oh, I can do this on my own. I don't really need the support structure of other people. And so really I had to get vulnerable and say, you do need the support and structure and idea, and you need to be able to lean on other people. Don't try to do this all on your own. Again, kind of something I learned from my mom though, because she's highly independent and never vulnerable. And that's really cost me my relationship with her, and it's cost her relationships virtually with everyone. She's fairly lonely. And so I look at that pain she's experiencing and it hurts me and it kills my heart. And I say, well, if I don't want that, I have got to become more vulnerable. And so if I need help, I can't be embarrassed to call, someone else that's a high producing agent and say, I totally did this. I don't even know. I just got it handed to me. I don't know what to do. What would you do in this situation? Or if you had this happen to you, and not be embarrassed in that moment and lean on the people that I know have probably already been through that or can give me some really sound advice. Not trying to put the perception out that I have it all covered and I'm perfect and all knowing. The more I can, step back into that vulnerability, the better I can grow, especially through those breakdowns.
And you pivot so well. I mean, you've done this on calls that we've been on before, where we'll have a conversation and you go, gosh, I never really thought about it that way. Like, you're willing to actually let go of your position on something, which is, by the way, I was just listening to Tim Ferriss, a big shout out to Tim Ferriss. Love the guy.
Love Tim.
And yeah, he's incredible. And one of the things that he actually said was, when you look at hedge fund managers who make all this money, they're 100% one way, but when someone presents something that actually is logical and makes sense, they're willing to pivot right away. And these are some of the highest paid individuals, highest earning individuals in the entire world, and they're willing to pivot. But we as agents get so stuck in like our one way of doing stuff and never change, right? I mean, it's amazing. So
dangerous.
Dangerous. And I'm getting from this conversation with you right now and watching your habits as well too over the last 2 years, is that pivoting and being willing to actually let go of your position is a key component to making massive amounts of money, right? It's a key component. Okay, so you've answered this whole biggest mistake, which was environment. So how do you choose people to be around? Since you look at it and go, environment's important, the people I'm around is important. How do you choose? What's the filter that you use for someone that you're going to spend a lot of time with?
I think because I have that hypersensitivity to people who complain and are victims, which, by the way, shout out to you, because there's been times where I jump on a call and you're like, Corinne, you're being a victim right now. You're complaining, and I'm going, oh man, thank you so much for calling me out, because I need that. I need somebody to, slap me in a loving way, energetic way, and say, hey, baby, you got to get back on track. Like, get your head out of your butt. Let's go. So I appreciate that you do that for me. Like, that's a huge piece that you bring to the relationship. Overall, I get sickened by it. So I try not to do that myself. And when I see other people that are complaining and they're full of excuses, it's reasons or results. So if we have somebody that's constantly full of reasons, you have all these reasons of why things aren't working, you're complaining, you're not solution oriented, I know pretty quickly. If I meet somebody and they tell me all the reasons that, didn't work at the last brokerage, or, they're just assault on their former leadership and all these things, I go, all right, well, I'm going to be really careful of that, because some people just need to explain what's happened, but there's a different tonality when someone's coming from victimhood. The words that they're choosing, there's no responsibility in the language that they use. And I'm really a believer that every situation, I think in real estate, we've all said, I've had that crazy client. This crazy client, I don't even know what, it's their fault, and this crazy agent, and we fill in the blank, right? To me, I say, well, what did we do to get into a relationship with that person? And number two, we probably missed an expectation. Like, we failed to give them an expectation and communicate somewhere along the line, because if we would have, they wouldn't have shown the crazy card. And so really that's going to come back on us. There's always a way that we can take accountability and responsibility. And so to that question, when people aren't doing that, I know right away I'm deselecting. really has nothing to do with skill whatsoever. I actually love people if they're newer to the business. I'll pour a ton of time, Someone will pour a ton of time and support and coaching into them. It's all mindset. I need to see that you're driven, determined, solution oriented, and you're just going to do it. Like you're somebody that's going to make it happen. You're not going to complain, and you're going to take responsibility in the moments.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. What have I missed? What have I missed? What else would you like to share with them? And because I've got 3 pages now of notes that I've actually taken. And as you're speaking about responsibility, oh crap, dude, there's people that I'm going, I need to actually make some calls. Like, and I love that. I'm like, I need to make some calls, clean it up, get responsible. And hopefully everyone else who's listening is recognizing it as well too. Because that crazy person, that crazy client is not crazy with someone else. We created that in some type of activity that we did. They're really nice to someone else, and it's our lack of versatility. I think one of the quotes that I love is, there are no such thing as difficult clients, only salespeople who lack versatility. There's no such thing.
Yeah, that's a tough one, though. That's a tough one. You have to be really responsible to say that one.
That's really tough. Responsible to say it, and then even more responsible
and believe it.
To believe it.
Live it. Yeah. Internalize it. Yeah.
So what do you want to share with these guys? Wrapping this up, this has been such a phenomenal opportunity and conversation for us to have. I got 3 things. I'm sorry. Okay. I always ask these on The Real Success. Do you have a morning ritual, and what is it?
Yeah. So the morning ritual for me is I get up at 5 a.m. The first thing I do is brush my teeth, and then I meditate. That takes me about 10 minutes. By the way, meditation, like I mentioned, is really hard. So I do self-directed or directed meditation, not self-directed. There's an app called Calm, C-A-L-M, and a lady just guides you through it. And so as soon as your thoughts start wandering, she comes back in and she's like, bring it back without judgment, stop wandering your thoughts. And I'm going, she's in my mind. So that's really helped me with that meditation piece. I forgot to mention that earlier. So I do the meditation. And then I put on my running clothes and I go running. And while I'm running, I'm doing my affirmations, I'm doing visualization, I'm getting my exercise in, and then I'm also doing an audible of, a variety of books. I try to have 2 books going at one time. One's for tactical and strategy, and one's towards mindset. And then I get ready. I get my kids ready. I have 4 kids, 1 away at college now, my Jasmine, and then 3 other young ones at home. So we all get ready. We head out the door. We leave, no later than 6:30 every morning. Drop them off at school and hit the office, and then I actually start planning. So that's where I actually plan my day, work on the business instead of in the business before the rest of the real estate world is awake, and then it's off and running from there. Beautiful.
I love it. Okay, first of all, great mom, because if you can get your kids out the door by 6:30 a.m., holy cow. That, selling 500, yay, kids out the door by 6:30, woo, that's even.
2 of them are boys, and the boys are San's problem. And I have the older girls at college, so I only really have to worry about the youngest daughter, and she's so self-sufficient. Gosh, it's probably me. I have to get me out of the door by 6:30.
Hey, I've got 2 more questions, but I want to pivot for 1 second here, if you've got time.
Yeah.
As a woman, there's so much, and it's not something that I personally know, but it's something I see with my amazing wife, Marcy. There's so much pressure on women to be a great mom and to be a great wife, and to, now in this case, the pressure of being a great business professional. And there's, a large portion, more women in this industry than men. And it's very interesting to watch women being very successful. Even a higher ratio of women to men in terms of the success. How do you balance this hard drive of being, such a strong rainmaker without losing this component of mom and wife and woman?
Yeah, I do a really good job, I've been told, of putting the hats on and taking them off. So, some people cross the lines, blur the lines. I don't do that. I would say if I had to go back to, mistakes that I've made, one of the biggest mistakes I've made ever, business or personal, was being too far on the work side and not contributing enough side, devoting enough time to my kids. And so nothing hit me harder than when my now oldest went to college, and she's 2,000 miles away, and I'm going, man, I have all these, things that I should have done differently. I should have appreciated all these moments a little bit more, and I should have, set that boundary a little bit different. And so that looks much different today, where the boundaries are set. And I would say, really, it's, again, goes back to that vulnerability piece. as a woman, number two, there's two things. One is we're usually afraid, most of the women that I talk to, we're afraid that because there's this perception that, you know, we're mothers, that maybe we're going to choose family over business, which we should, but we want to try to hit that perception hard and go the other way. And so we'll say, you know, if somebody wants to meet at a certain time, we make it appear like, oh no, my family's not going to be a distraction for our transaction. You know, I'll meet with you at that time, even though you know that's a time you have set aside for your family, or you know you committed to going on this field trip or whatever that commitment is. And you don't plain afraid, right? That scarcity conversation of just like, hey, I can't meet you that day. I actually have a field trip I'm going on with my child, but I'm more than happy to meet with you the following day or even on a weekend in the morning. Or I don't work on Sundays because that day is devoted to family. So those are things, I did do those things earlier on before Jasmine just left to college, but it took me a journey to get there. It probably took me 7 or 8 years of being in the business before I started putting those boundaries into place. And I guess just really being vulnerable with clients. And if you lose those people, really, who cares? Until you lose some of those people, you're playing so tight with it. Oh my gosh, I'm afraid. What if I lose that client? So what? If you lose them, they're a jerk anyway, and they're just going to refer you more people that are jerky just like them. So let's cut them early on, right? Let's only work with people that we like. We set the boundaries and the expectations up front. And I think that's a huge piece of it. You have to set the boundaries and the expectations up front, because if you never tell them ahead of time, hey, I don't work on Sundays. Hey, there's no emergencies in real estate that happen after title closes at 5 because we can't fund a record. So anything you're going to talk about, it can wait till morning. However, I still make myself available till 6:30 each night if you need to reach me. But if you call me after that time, just expect a call back the next day. If we don't give some of those expectations and set the boundaries in the front end, now we feel compelled or responsible that we have to get back to them because we never told them what to expect in the first place. So that's a huge one, is setting those boundaries.
Brilliant. Yeah, and there's, I think this. There's a event coming up, Wire, which is the first time we've ever done this, and it's women in real estate that Debbie Holloway's leading.
Debbie, yeah.
It's just for ladies in real estate to deal with specific issues like this that you guys are talking about. Wow. And because you don't occur as a hardline beast, there's certain, ball breakers out there in the business that are, and, they've lost, there's just a sacrifice and back and forth. So good on you for that. Hey, okay. Two last things. One book. What's the one book that's made the biggest difference for you that you would recommend to everyone?
The one book I would say would be Think and Grow Rich. Not because it's talking about growing rich, most importantly because it talks about the mindset. It all goes back to mindset. So, whatever the mind can believe you can achieve type of concept, that really is true, right? The whole Roger Bannister 4-minute mile, if anyone hasn't heard that story, no one could do it. And then once he does it, how many people do it right after him in a very short period of time? Because people didn't believe it was possible. So once you have that belief and once you wire yourself a certain way, just game over, life changes. Once you're, another quote, not to keep quoting things, but once a mind expands, it doesn't contract.
Yeah.
So when you read that,
never go back. Yeah,
it can never go back. It never goes back. So just the concepts in that book, I've read that one at least 4 times. I read it, every 18 to 24 months and kind of pick it up again too as I need it.
Totally.
Yeah.
So outside I love that book. Great recommendation. Outside of the business, what are you the most proud of?
I would say my family for sure. Having, moving schools that many times and going from just all those different environments, it was a pretty lonely childhood. So I have one best friend I've known since I was 2. She's a godmother to my children and vice versa. So I have that one soul friend, but pretty lonely childhood. And broken dysfunctional family as well. So that family for me is my core. Everything's based around, my kids' extracurricular activities and really having the right mindset with my kids, putting them to work, making sure they're earning money. But I'm just most proud of the little adults and human beings that they are and how I'm contributing and having an impact on them.
Brilliant. It's your legacy.
That's my legacy. That's it.
People will forget the real estate, but they won't forget the kids and the impact that you've had and the family you created. So awesome. Yeah. So if they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so they can reach me via email, which would be my name, Cairn, CARIN, @soldbycairn.com. Or you can call me, 623-223-1660. And just as we wrap here today, if I can, I would say, I really put it out to everyone. If you haven't gone through your personal challenge, I think because a lot of us hear this, what's our why, or what's our purpose, and what are we pursuing every day? And the more that I've revisited my story and my childhood and how that's contributed to who I am today, it's really amazing and fun, frankly, to look at the things that have happened there and how that's outlined the rest of my path and my journey. So if I look at, gosh, my first piece in real estate was I'm driven, determined, very versatile, right? When the market changes, my mom and my childhood and all those changes taught me that. And then my grandmother being a teacher, showing me the impact you can have on other people. It became more about the people and the impact I could have on the people in our team and even across the world, more than just buying and selling real estate. And then if I keep going, the boy that I had the privilege of knowing and living with, he ended up eventually passing away. I don't remember if I shared that or not, the boy that was being abused by his mother, but that sits at my core, that to start a nonprofit and do something to help, foster children, abused children. And so that's my next. So I'm in the growing and developing people, having that significant impact, but that impact will end up carrying over when I get to more of the philanthropy and I can do the bigger impact with the kids. And so when you have all those pieces of your life story, it's really fascinating how you can line that up, tee it up, and make it all make sense. And I know sometimes we just get caught up in the hustle and bustle. We don't take the time to do that, but that's part of the journaling piece and the power that can come from that and help you have that purpose and then just drive towards it every single day.
Right on. Gosh. So Corinne, thank you. Thank you. This was such a phenomenal interview. And, guys, I wanted to keep Corinne on just a little bit longer than our normal 30, 40 minutes, because there's so much value inside of not just the story, but what she's done with it and who she's become. We all got our crap. We all got our stuff, and it never stops. Life is going to continue throwing things at you, and you can't control what life throws at you. But what you can control is how you respond to it and who you become out of it as well too. So be fearless. Corinne, thank you from all of Real Success Nation. And I know you've got a busy, busy day ahead of you, so I will let you go. And for all of you guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening if you're listening on our podcast. If you need further support from us, we'd be more than happy to be able to support and assist you in any way possible. Please reach out to us at tomferry.com. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys at Summit for those of you that are coming. And Corinne, go crush the day. Thanks again. Appreciate you. And I look forward to speaking to you all next month. Thanks again, guys. Crush it.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.